How's it going? This is a Kuwanano. Sure, I mispronounced that as well. A parody cover of Confessions of a Rotten Girl by whoever did that, called Judgement of the Rotten Girl. Very interesting stuff. I mean, we talked about, and I think it's actually the biggest video on my channel right now, thank you, on just the views that I hold to and how I saw this very, Catholic extreme mindset about, Hatsune Miku's character being shameful about, looking at gay art and stuff like that. And, it actually provided a lot of interesting discussion in the comments. I will share that later as we start checking this out, though. I don't know what to expect with this.
Dear God,
okay.
I've come to pray in your name.
So pitching
May you have mercy on the rotten girl's soul.
Pitching it down.
I'm judging her. I've never sinned in all my life. It's the truth I can't deny. Disgusting all the things she reads. She'll never be as perfect as me.
Okay.
I'm devoted to my kind. Nothing ugly on my mind. I consume media the proper way. I'm a picture perfect girl.
Interesting. Okay, so now we get the pendulum swinging in the opposite direction, where we're just as delusional about what religion means, what it's supposed to be, and excuse me. She's saying, oh, well, God, I'm going to judge this person, which, first of all, the Bible says a lot about. Judge not, lest ye be judged. He who has no sin cast the first stone. You are a liar if you think that you haven't sinned and that you have any reason to judge other people, which ergo is sin. And here we go. The playing field is leveled. Now, I get that perspective, though, and, it's... While it's not our job to judge other people, especially if someone is of the same belief system as you can definitely come to them and be like, hey, I'm noticing you're kind of living in this sinful lifestyle. That's not what we're called to do. Can we have some prayer and reflection on what you're doing? And that's something that I, had a conversation with a few people about whether or not allowing anything sinful in your mind could be a bad thing. And my thought was, without understanding probably how things go for Miku at the end of Confessions of a Rotten Girl, that she just, that she is living in sin and she is choosing this stuff that is not okay, like anything else is. I mean, people act like, well, I'm not going to get into it too much. It's just, sin is sin. And yes, we will make mistakes, but you try to not live in those mistakes and try and see past it. And that's where part of having community is a helpful thing. I noticed Miku was trying to be sort of a one-woman operation here. She was trying to handle all of it herself and be like, well, I will either sink with the ship or I will start a new religion where I can be whatever I want. I feel like, frankly, in that instance, especially with how she was praying and not seeing the results that she wanted as quickly as she wanted, which is something a lot of people have asked me about, prayer. If it doesn't immediately help, then what's the point? It's about continually seeking it. And that's what I'm going to say for right now.
Watch out, the girl is problematic. Don't look, her accounts are not safe for work. I think she needs to be cancelled. I'm gonna call the police on what she shared. Hold up, are they holding hands there? On top of the 3-year age difference, I can't possibly ignore it's illegal somewhere, I'm sure.
So then you got to get the tongue-in-cheek of how some people will, for whatever reason, just assume, like looking at whether or not it's illegal. I think it was Frank Peretti, who was one of my favorite authors. He said something like, there was a guy at Berkeley University who went to school for 4 to 6 months without any clothes on. He just decided he just didn't want to do it. And people were upset about it, but the institution couldn't figure out what to do with him for the longest time because they were like, well, we can't say it's wrong. We can't infringe on other people's expressions. So they had no sense of morals with deciding what was going on. And then women got together at the university and they came to the administration. They said, we believe that this behavior constitutes harassment. Shoo, he was gone. So as Frank was saying, when truth is lacking, politics can fill the gap. And yeah, it's an interesting discussion I've seen on the internet when people who don't claim to have any religious affiliation or any sort of moral compass start arguing morality and try to bring in man-made ideas of morality, i.e. the government and laws and that kind of thing. It's very interesting. So I like how that is all being tied into this version of this character deciding, well, I have to judge her. It's very interesting stuff. Yeah. I like the lyricism here. Yes, you have. Okay. Wasn't made for me, huh? So probably I would wonder in this regard, since we are splitting hairs about the morality of it, maybe you might be going a little bit far with your own ships, but because they're hetero, you're like, that's okay. I mean, if you really want to call the spade a spade and figure out what is not okay and what is, there's a much finer line that you have just moved the goalpost behind here. Parody Hatsune Miku. So, anyway. So it's interesting that she's just going from a logical standpoint up to this point. I mean, she's mentioned how she sees herself as sinless, and she was praying to God, like, God, let me let me point the gun on this one, Father. Let me take your gun and bestow your your judgment on this situation as your faithful knight. But yeah, and actually they did mention some scripture as well. But it seems just as superficial as what the rotten girl was discussing amongst herself, trying to justify it religiously. So,
someone please punish this girl because these things are vile. I cannot possibly allow non-existent laws to be broken. What would God think? I don't know. I could have just ignored it and gone about my day. But listen, in my mind, I am perfect and pure, and because I'm not able to tell the difference between fiction and reality, it must be true.
So, I'm just curious. And since this is my video, I'm going to think about it as much as I want. So, that distinction of, well, I can't distinguish between fiction and reality, so it must be true. The idea, because I don't think she's coming from the perspective of, oh, I know that she says she believes in something, but then she's not following it. I don't think she's trying to go that route of like exhorting another believer to turn from their wicked ways. She's just noticing that they're into something that she's not into. So it's going from that very... I always felt like it's indicative of you feeling threatened with your own interests, right? And I can remember a bit ago there was someone who left Twitter shortly after I made a comment, not criticizing anything, but just saying it was interesting that there was some art depicting a relationship between, what are those guys? Uraka and Bakugo, is that his name? The flame guy. They were in a relationship. She's going through her cramping. He's using his fire to relax her muscles. And she's lying there in pain, but, he's like, is this okay? And she's like, yeah. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, okay, you're actually using a facet of your power that is supposed to be so explosive and destructive to actually be helpful. That's interesting. And someone hated the fact that I wasn't worshiping that type of ship. And then they just said, I checked out their page and they said, I've been so attacked on Twitter. I'm leaving. This place is so unsafe for people like me. And I'm like, why are you so threatened by that? Like, how is someone's interest actually having that much of an effect on your own viewpoints of things? Now, I'm old as dirt, so I don't care about how anyone ships things unless it's real life people with agency who might choose to be like, hey, I'm not attracted to this person. Could you not act like we're attracted? But, other than that, it seems very interesting, this perspective we have here. So, okay, there we go. I'm curious if they just asked the artist, like, hey, could I just pitch down the instrumental and then sing over it? That'd be interesting.
I wonder if she could be the devil in disguise. She won't get away with this, she will pay the price. I'm not showing mercy for someone so dirty. This foul display is not getting away. But deep inside I know the truth.
Oh.
Know the feelings I refuse. It is envy steering my revenge on this empathetic girl.
So she's already... she wishes that she could be as loose as... Well, I mean, the other girl wasn't even really that loose. She was adamant about it, but she was, like, sweating the entire time, like, nervous about her decision. Interesting. But that makes sense. She's envious of how someone could just be so frivolous with their thoughts and desires. How could that possibly be? I have more thoughts on that, but I've kept your guys' ear long enough. We're just going to finish this out.
So I declare an all-out war. Cannot take it anymore. Writing call-outs on the internet, reporting to the authorities.
Authorities would never beat the devil, not me. Reported to the authorities. I mean, even the same amount of syllables is in here, and I love that. That just makes the parody of it so much more grand. I love it. Well, and so that whole... Oh, vocals in tune and timing by... Okay. Yeah, Kuwanano did that. Satani. I'm sorry. Or Sawtown. I don't know. But yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, that whole... I'm going to hate her for the rest of my life. That's such a you problem. If anyone is like that at all, it's like, you need to get over this because it has nothing to do with the person in front of you. It's the same thing with, like, phobias. Phobias have nothing to do with what you're actually scared of. Because if you are that frozen by something that is not even that... I mean, even if it's an unsafe thing, if you're, like a shark or something, if you're so afraid of it, you can't even go near the ocean, a place where, if you're just going near it on the beach or something, you're safe. But if you have that type of fear, it has nothing to do with the shark. It has something else to do with you that you have imprinted on that thing. I had arachnophobia, and it was a whole journey as to why that was. But I won't keep you guys any longer with this. This was really interesting. Very interesting stuff. But I would love to know your guys' thoughts down in the comments. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Please check this person out. I have only just been made aware of their presence right now, but I'll have to see what other stuff they make. So see you guys next time.